Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we're talking Magnet Warriors again, and I don't care. But this time it's a little bit different. I have designed specific support cards, some fan-made support cards by me. Specifically, I just spent the last hour and a half going through it, looking at the archetype, looking at what I think the archetype needs and could use, and coming with 5 brand new support cards for the deck. And who knows, maybe Konami keeps an eye on this stuff, maybe they don't, maybe they'll take some hints from my cards and go and make them down the line, but whatever. Regardless, we're looking at Magnet Warriors. This deck has been done so dirty. They gave this deck a structure deck that was supposed to revamp it right alongside ABCs. ABCs immediately took off and became a meta staple for years to come, whereas Magnet Warriors never even sniffed competitive playability, even at that time, back in whatever, 2016, 2017 time. And so it's just kind of a shame that these are supposed to be comparable archetypes, or at least mirror archetypes for each other, one being for Kaiba, one being for Yugi. Obviously big competitive, juggernauts in the original Yu-Gi-Oh anime, and one was awesome and the other one was kind of poop. So that's the idea. There's a lot of cards that I wish, and you'll see with the cards I'm giving here, some of them I actually do think are somewhat realistic. The other ones I think Konami probably wouldn't lean that direction, just because leaning in the direction of some of the cards I've made would require Konami to acknowledge that some of the cards they've made in the past for Magnet Warriors were terrible and a mistake, and they're okay with them becoming not even part of the deck anymore. And I doubt that they would go that route. So stuff like original Valkyrion and the original Magnet Warriors. We have the Electromagnet Warriors now, so we should never have to play those old ones. But Valkyrion as well, they made support that basically forced you to play Valkyrion. Konami loves doing that, forcing you to play old bad cards. Hopefully we wouldn't have to play him. Berserkion, this is supposed to be one of the new boss monsters for the deck, but this card's terrible. You have to get so much setup for it to be even summonable, and even when you do, it has a very mediocre effect on field anyway. That requires you to have a ton of Magnet Warriors in grave, even after you banish 3 to summon him, and his float effect doesn't even work like ABC Dragon Buster. It works on destruction, which is just so reliant on your opponent, which is terrible. Delta's another one. We got Epsilon, which basically just power crept Delta out of playability, and Empyrean Magnum, the superconductive battle bot. This would be the fusion. This guy's interesting to me because he's a good card on field. My gripe with him is he forces you to play Valkyrion and Berserkion, and the deck has no fusion spells. So we have no way to fusion summon this card in Engine. So my guess would be if Konami did come out with their own wave, they would come with a way to fuse into Empyrean Magnum, but that's not the route I'm going. So let's jump into my cards. First on the list, and this is another weird thing, I have 5 monsters. I actually think the spells and traps are okay. They're solid extenders. No actual starter card. That's the one thing you could throw out there that they don't have that I think would make sense, is they don't have a single consistency spell or trap card, so maybe that's something, but again, we're splitting hairs. I still think the deck has some consistency anyway. But anyway, we start off with this guy. This is Omega the Magnet Warrior. I took artwork from the anime and just cards we've seen already, anime and Rush Duel, so nothing crazy with the artwork here, keeping it simple. This is a rock monster. He's a level 4, which is pretty important. You can only use each of his falling effects once per turn. If you control an earth rock monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And second effect of this card is special summoned by a magnet card effect. You can target a card your opponent controls, destroy it. So this card does a couple of really key things. I really love this is something I wanted in the form of cards with the deck. There's just something I wanted in both effects. I wanted, one, a level 4 Magnet Warrior that could be summoned off of your Electromagnet Warriors, because they all have a quick effect to tribute themselves to summon a level 4 Magnet Warrior from deck on the opponent's turn. I wanted to be able to turn those into some kind of interruption, and this is just a simple pop. It turns them into a weaker Dryden, I would even say. And secondly, extension from the hand. If you have a way to get this, this just immediately becomes a 3-up. If you make this card a brick and not able to come out of the hand, it becomes an awkward card to draw. And you kind of want to play 3 of it because turn after turn, you may need to keep summoning him from deck to get pops over and over again. And I also like that his first effect triggers his second effect, and he's hard once per turn, so you can't just like overly abuse him. He's a good card. He's a 1-for-1 extender that also takes something from your opponent. So I think it's a pretty fair card, but it's a very specific slot in the deck that feels very, very much missing. And one of the cool things about the deck is a lot of times, even if your main play breaks down, you get hand trapped once or twice. If you just end on any of the 3 Electromagnet Warriors, they're just walking Tridents now. So they do allow you to be an interruption even after you've been hand trapped, which allows the deck to trade into hand traps pretty nicely, I think. So that's a really cool first card for the deck. Next up, we have Omicron, the Electromagna Warrior. So this is my ideal type of card to replace something like Valkyrion. In like a new modernized kind of main deck boss monster, but also just kind of a solid extender for the deck as well. The reason this is really important is that Alpha himself, the Electromagnet Warrior, only searches level 8 Magnet Warriors, and the only ones that exist are Valkyrion and Valkyrion, and that does nothing. If I go normal summon like Alpha and search one of those cards, you just pass. You have to have like extra cards on top of that, and that's just nothing. And those cards are just bricks. Like that card searches bricks. That's all it does, which is terrible. So ideally, we could get a level 8 Magnet Warrior that actually helps us push our game plan. So with Omicron, decent stats, 22, 26, nothing crazy. You can only use each of his following effects once per turn. First effect, if you control a magnet card, you can special summon this card from your hand. I like magnet card because there is a field spell that's okay in the deck, so being able to just put that up and not even have a monster on the field, you could summon him, which is kind of cool. Second effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon a Magnet Warrior monster from your hand or graveyard. I think that's a pretty cool bonus effect too, and you'll see with the third effect it gets interesting. So third effect is a quick effect where you can banish a Magnet or Magna card from your graveyard, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effect. So he's also a walking imperm by banishing a Magnet card from grave. I think this also makes this card really, really intriguing to me, because one thing that Konami doesn't tend to do with their card design very often is make cards that have different roles, but they don't stack, if that makes sense. So this card can be either or, but it's generally not doing both, right? It can be just link fodder into your plays or whatever, fusion fodder into your plays. You'll see with the next couple cards, where like you summon him, you use him as material, and then he uses effect in grave to just like keep extending. Or you could actually leave him on field and leave him up as a walking imperm monster to make your board stronger. So I like that he kind of can be either or, and it doesn't keep him locked in at one role, or it's not too strong by giving him a bunch of rolls that stack on top of each other. If he could just pull out a Magnet Warrior from hand or grave while he's on field, it makes everything, all of his effects, like work together. He jumps on the field really easily, he pulls another Magnet Warrior from anywhere really easily, and he's a walking interruption. Like, that's one of those things where I'm like, is that too much? I think this is good in between that allows this card to be nice, and also allows you to play around stuff like Nib too, where you could, if you do get nibbed, okay, well, I did just, like, you put Omicron in grave now, so now I can just Omicron back one of my Electromagnet Warriors, and now I'm left with a Trident through Nib, plus whatever other hand trap you used, and that's not the worst trade in the world. So I like that. I think this card's really cool. Next up, so you're going to see a very specific trend here. You're going to see us focus in on ABCs really hard right here. I think if these archetypes are supposed to be comparable, they should have similar type boss monsters and like engine cards. So that's my goal here. This card, Lambda the Electromagnet Warrior Carrier, is supposed to be comparable to Union Controller, the new ABC card from Duelists of Brilliance earlier this year, and you're going to see it's almost verbatim like a very similar card. So this card is a fusion. It's a level 4 Magnet Warrior fusion, which is very important. It takes any one Earth or Rock monster plus a Magnet Warrior or Magna Warrior monster. We could make this into 2 Magnet Warriors / Magna Warriors if you wanted, to not make it as generic for Earth Rock monsters to kind of have a piece in this deck. I get it if you want to keep the deck pure with restrictions that way, but that's just something else to throw in. This card must first be special summoned by tributing the above cards you control. You can only use each effect once per turn. So basically, that you summon this card almost like a Link monster. Once you put 2 Magnet Warriors or an Earth Rock and a Magnet Warrior, you can just tribute them straight to grave to summon this out. So it's basically Link monster adjacent in the way you summon it. First effect, if this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can add 1 magnet spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Again, very, very similar to Union Controller, but in this deck specifically, makes a ton of sense. There are a handful of legit decent Magnet Warrior spells and traps. There's Induction, there's Magnet Field, there's Magnet Reverse, and Magnet Conversion that are all like solid cards, but they have no way to search them in the deck so far. So I think this being a very reachable tool to get you access to any of those spells and traps is really, really nice. There. And so the goal here would be to get Induction, and that's also the key part of why this is a level 4 Magnet Warrior, because Induction has to target a Magnet Warrior, or you have to control a Magnet Warrior whose level is level 4 or lower to use it. And so this card gets it. It is level 4 or lower Magnet Warrior, and you can go from there, which is really cool. Which is why this would be better than, like, per se, a Link monster, because it's not a level. And then the last effect, during your main phase, you can special summon one Magnet Warrior monster from your hand. This is also very similar to Unit Controller. Now, the one thing that's dicey about this card is it is clearly a huge choke point, right? If this card gets stopped, not only do you not get your search, like let's say you get Impermed or Veilered or Mournered on it. If you get fully negated, you, one, aren't getting the spell and trap search, and two, you don't get the ability to pull a Magnet Warrior out of the hand. That's pretty problematic, I think, overall. So you'll see with the last card we're going to show at a way to potentially help us like play through interaction on this card, and hopefully help this card not be like as big of a choke point in as many scenarios. So cool card, really important card for the deck. Which takes us to our new boss monster. So if I could have it my way, we would not have to play this guy anymore. Where is he at? Is it this guy? No, it's this guy. We would not have to play this guy anymore unless they give us like a crazy fusion spell. I don't want to have to play him. So this is our new form. This is Valkyrion the Master Electromagnetic Warrior. Not putting Magnet Warrior in his name specifically, that I see at the end should hopefully keep this from being able to be reborn off of a bunch of generic Magnet Warrior cards, and I think that's kind of the idea, because I don't want this card to be too easy to like resurrect, because he is really strong. But yeah, you'll see. So he's a level 8 rock fusion. He's basically ABC Dragon Buster if he was a Magnet Warrior card. And that's, again, another thing that I wanted these cards to be these archetypes to be comparable with different like ways of getting there. So this is him. He must first be special summoned from your extract by banishing the above cards you control and/or from the graveyard. So same thing as ABC Dragon Buster. Just to save space, I just put Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. Just assume these are the Electromagnet Warrior guys specifically, because those are the new ones. First effect, quick effect. You can discard one card, then target one card your opponent controls. Apply the following effect based on the targeted card. So if you targeted a monster, shuffle it into the deck. If you targeted a spell or trap, you can set that card to your field. Really, really interesting effect on this card. You can, I mean, and listen, I'm not a card designer, so ruling could be a little bit awkward here with that take and set effect. But I do think it's kind of interesting. So the idea with this was to still keep the magnet theme with our main interruption in the deck, which would be, so if he's a monster, right, and it's another monster, then with like the rules of magnetism, if those are similar poles, like poles, they repel each other. So you're repelling the opponent's monster back into the deck, shuffling it back in. Whereas if it's a spell or trap, that's kind of like the opposite of a monster. So you take that one and bring it over to your field. Either way, it's really good. We definitely would have to work out like rulings on this card, on like how it specifically is going to work. But like I do think there's a way to make that kind of work to where it still feels like works with like the theme of magnetism, and still also useful in that way. All right, and the last effect, during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you contribute this card, then target one of your banished Magnet Warrior monsters, special summon it. Both effects hard once per turn, ideally. You can summon this card more than once per turn, but its effects are hard once per turn, so I don't know if you'd want to, but still good. So the idea with this effect is it's kind of like ABC Dragon Buster's effect, except ABC Dragon Buster can summon up to 3 of the banished pieces. This card only summons 1, and that's just because the Electromagnet Warriors are so much better than the ABC pieces. They actually are, like crazy. Like Alpha and Beta just search on summon. They get you follow up immediately. And then all 3 of them still have that like tag out effect where they contribute themselves on the opponent's turn as a quick effect to just summon any level 4 Magnet Warrior from deck. So just ending on this guy means you're ending on his shuffle / steal of a spell or trap, plus 3 You're ending on that plus a one of these guys, which can tag out for the Dryden. So you're ending on like a shuffle plus a pop by ending on this guy, which is really good. Or even just getting follow-up, right? Going for Epsilon, getting more names dumped back into grave, and just stockpiling your grave with the materials you're going to need to make another Valkyrion on another turn, which is all really good. So that's kind of where we end up with those. That's my idea of like the ABC equivalent boss monsters to allow this deck to kind of, feel comparable in the right way, which takes us to the final card, because like I said, getting interrupted on our fusion before, it literally like forces the deck to pass unless you already opened induction, and that's basically it. So lastly, we have Theta the Electromagnet Warrior. Nothing crazy, you're not getting fancy. This is a link monster, which isn't too important, but he does take any 2 earth rock monsters. I think that's fine. You'll see with his effects, I think it's fine. First effect, during your main phase, you can special summon 1 Magnet Warrior monster from your hand or graveyard. I think that's totally cool. Nothing crazy there. Second effect, as a quick effect, you contribute 1 earth rock monster you control. Then target 1 card in either graveyard, banish that card. So it's a walking DD Crow plus a monster reborn for a Magnet Warrior. And I'm glad I put Magnet Warrior specifically on here and not just earth rocks in general. So like, even if you play earth rocks, you still have to play Magnet Warriors for that first effect to even do anything really. And then the second effect is like not overly powerful enough where as a generic earth rock tool, I don't think this card would be all that crazy. So I think this card would be cool. The idea with this is that with certain lines where you go through the fusion level 4, if this card does get Imperm Veil or Mournered, whatever, very popular cards in the metagame, if you can just put any other earth rock on the field, you can link into this guy. He can reborn one of your pieces from grave, and you can at least end your turn on like one of the Electromagnet Warriors, plus this guy who's like a graveyard interruption. So, you know what I mean? Like we're just talking about getting good value here, and nothing crazy. I think this is like a low-key card that just helps us play through like really sticky scenarios, but I think it could be an important card nonetheless. And it wouldn't even have to be a Magnet Warrior. If you wanted to allow it to reborn any earth rock, you could, and just make it a generic link 2 that comes out in a similar time, as like the rest of the support. But I think the support really drives home what I think Magnet Warriors have been needing, which is just to basically give them the treatment that ABC's gotten this whole time, because they've been kind of left in the dust here. There's a ton of ways they could do it with Bastion cards that have never been printed. If they want to make those, they could just make new ones. It's up to them. Again, I don't think they'd go this route, and I think like if they made support, they would even make new spells and traps, and they wouldn't lean away from making like Empyrean not playable anymore, or Valkyrion or Berserkion unplayable anymore. I don't think they would lean that route, but I think this would be one of the cleanest ways for them to kind of clean up this archetype and just make it playable all in one fell swoop. So there you go. Those are my thoughts there. If you guys are fans of Magnet Warriors, or you just have an idea about this archetype, some other support card that you could think of that you think might fit better or just fill a different role than the cards I have here, definitely throw it in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to throw in for this, and we'll see. Do you guys like these types of videos? I might end up doing more for some of my favorite archetypes that like I could theorize more support for. Subterra is definitely on that list. Ninjas as well. You guys know how I feel about those, so we'll see. We'll see down the line. But let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know if you want to see more like this video down the line, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.